Hello everyone and welcome to the Cavan Community and Culture Show. As usual, I'm your host, Grace McKiernan. Hope everyone had a really good Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll start off this week with some of the cultural events that you can start your new year with. The Ramor Young Players present Robin Hood, directed by Mary Farrelly and Trina McCann. This panto extravaganza is packed with singing, dancing and fun for all the family. The show is on at the Ramor Theatre, Virginia, Thursday the 11th, Friday the 12th at 7pm, Saturday the 13th at 3pm and 7pm, and Sunday the 14th at 3pm. Tickets are available from the Ramor Theatre website. Also coming up at the Ramor Theatre in January is an exhibition by artist Eleanor Thompson. From her time living in South Africa and throughout Ireland, Eleanor is inspired by colour and alternative character in non-realistic painting. Admission is free and the exhibition opens on January the 16th. The eagerly anticipated independent feature film No Party for Billy Burns plays in Cavan Cinema on Thursday, January 4th. Written and directed by Cavan man Pádraig Connaughty and starring fellow Cavan man and star of RTE's Republic of Telly, Kevin McGahern. The movie tells the story of good-natured Billy leading a sheltered life in Cavan when an unfortunate chain of events triggers his loss of innocence and the line between reality and realism begin to blur. The film was very well received at both the Cork and Galway film festivals. The film is at 8pm and tickets are available from Multisound in Cavan. Now we've got a great interview for you with the lovely Heather Brett. Heather is a poet, artist and writer who has been living and working in Cavan for years. She is one of a number of artists who have been part of the cultural project The Ancient and Wild exhibition, a chance for a number of musicians, writers and artists to engage with and create work inspired by the geology and environment of County Cavan. Heather chatted to me about the project and what inspired her most to create a beautiful poem for the exhibition. So Heather, the Ancient and Wild exhibition is a combination between the Marble Arch Caves, Creative Ireland and the Cavan Arts. And do you know how it kind of came about and what the aim of the project was?
Yeah, like you were saying, it is a Creative Ireland joint project between the Arts Office, the Heritage Office and the Marble Arch Caves Global Geopark. And Katrina O'Reilly is over the Arts Office and Anne-Marie Ward is over the Heritage and Grania O'Connor was a Geopark person. So the project, it was similar to a project that had been previously done a few years ago called Response to Beauty. The Ancient and Wild idea is that 12 artists, all from quite different backgrounds, would respond and engage with the landscape, the geology and the social history of County Cavan.
I know that you did a couple of trips as part of the kind of build up to the exhibition to both Cavan House and to Trinity Island. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about the trips that the artists took.
We did. We had really, really good days. Actually, we went to the Burren Park one of the days, and there was a picnic and lunch, and it was wonderful. And we had a tour through the Burren Park. I'm actually quite familiar with the Burren Park because I was very lucky a few years ago to be. I wrote a poem especially for the Burren called Testament, and it was actually set to music by the Cavan Choir in the Burren on the summer solstice. So I'm quite familiar with the Burren, so I really enjoyed the day. But it just wasn't my first thought to do a project about the Burren, although I have done, you know. The next, one of the other places we went to was, we went to St Mogues Island, which was really, really very pretty place. We went over in the boat with Aidan Brady, who is a fantastic geopark person himself, and he does bees as well, and he's a font of knowledge about St Mogues Island. I suppose it's a very wild place, and there was lots of blue dragonflies. The place was just packed with them. It was just amazing, and of course it's very old. The ruins are there of the church, and I think it was it's just amazing what they did do in those days. You always had to get a boat to it, and their faith must have been amazing. And then Trinity Island, of course, it's another old site, and it's quite political. Trinity Island, and what was going on there, very pretty place as well. And then, of course, we went to Cavan House, which really interested me because I would just finish a residency in the Sea House there in Kilmore. And it was amazing to find out that a lot of the people that had lived in Cavan House actually were born in the Sea House and had moved there. And of course, all these people were always all related. The Beresford, the Leslies, all the Cavan gentry, I suppose, at the time, you know. But I was very inspired nearly by the Leslie story of one of the officers actually of the Leslie clan, and he spent all his life kind of in the parsonage. And that was mostly it. So it was a very good project.
Great. And could you tell me a little bit about your contribution towards the exhibition? So I know that you've written a poem. Just if you could tell us a little bit about it, what inspired it, what inspiration you took from the trips that kind of led towards the poem.
Well, as I say, I had just finished a residency in the Sea House in Cavan, which is Cavan House is actually a little sister house to the Kilmore Sea House. And I was just interested that a lot of the people in there were born, the ones that had come to live later in Cavan House were actually born in the Sea House. And this particular gentleman that I actually got quite inspired by was Charles Leslie. And his father was the parson, and he called him the Gov. And it was about his life, and he'd been a soldier in Glasgow, and of course he'd taken ill, and it wasn't a terribly lucky family, unfortunately, because there's a lot of illnesses in those days. But it was just quite amazing that he wrote an awful lot about his life in Cavan House and what he thought about the countryside there. But as a project, it was great to see so many different people doing things. There was films with poetry put to an actual visual area about the burn. There was animation, which was very beautifully done, about water. And there was rocks made by Elena Duff, which were very interesting in the sense of like before it all started, which is a sound piece. And then some of the other artists, there was another fine poem from B. Smith. There was another film, actually a sound piece from Cormac McCann, which was very interesting, and a piece of art hanging, a wall hanging by Ben McCabe, and then of course visual art from Ricky and Frida Young, and I hope I haven't forgotten any, and some photographs, yes, and some photographs from Rosaria McHugh. I'm just trying to think now to forget anyone else. Oh yes, Jim McPhee, yes, or Jim Fee. He had a piece of pottery, and it was quite interesting to be part of an exhibition that wouldn't look out of place in a city. You know what I mean? I thought that everything was so diverse, and it was quite minimalist actually. When you go in, you think 12 pieces, you know, and it looked like there wasn't a lot in it, but actually when you went to see the history behind everybody's piece, it was actually really interesting, you know. So kind of, I was quite impressed with being part of the exhibition, you know.
And there was such a variety, like you say, of artistic backgrounds there, from music to animation to storytelling.
Yeah.
And did everybody work separately on their own pieces? Or
they
was
did,
there
yes. No, there was no collaboration except when we came to do the tour days and hear the talks and that. We had Dr. Kirsten Lemon came to tell us about the glacial erratics over in the Burren and the timeline, actually, because it's wonderful to think that the Burren, like there's rocks in the Burren that are hundreds of millions of years old, you know, and then to go to built heritage, which is maybe a couple of 100 years old, a fine house like Cavan House, you know, and then to go to somewhere like Trinity Island, which is, you know, really steeped in its own little history, you know, and it was just such a nice project, you know. And Cavan, of course, is it lends itself to a lot of inspiring places, you know, as well as the landscape and the built heritage and the story of the humans through the times, you know, because it's not that long ago actually that people actually lived in the Burren, although they had such a diverse life there, you know, and very different ideas.
did you find like when you were creating your own piece that you were kind of inspired by the different artistic inputs that were going on around you from the different people?
I was, because I started to paint, actually. I do art as well as poetry, but I actually started to paint it. I actually painted the blue dragonflies on St. Mogs Island. But then I just felt, I don't know about that. And then I changed it completely to do the poem about Cavan House. And I was actually happier with the poem. I will go back. I haven't even finished the artwork. But I was actually pleased that I actually started the artwork, because I don't do a lot of art for myself. But I did start some artwork, and then I decided, no, I'd just go back to poetry.
Okay.
So,
and what, like, you've been living in Cavan for a long time, and you have written poetry and short stories and everything in Cavan for a long time. And what do you find most inspiring about Cavan as an artist living here?
Cavan, yeah, like I say, I've been here over 30 years, and it's, I don't know. I mean, like, I think Cavan is one of those places that, because I picked it, I didn't have to come here. And I think because I'd lived in other places in Ireland, I lived in the north, I lived in Dublin, I'd lived in Monaghan, I'd lived other places. I actually really like Cavan. It's very laid back in its own way, and it's very tolerant, and it's extremely tolerant of artists and welcoming. And there's a solidity about Cavan that I don't believe I find anywhere else. So I am very happy here. And I think there's an awful lot of people from other places, but we seem to, when we come here and live here, we stay here, So, I mean, I'm quite happy to live in Cavan forever,
Yeah. Oh,
so, yeah. And I do love the landscape. Although, the north, where I come from, the landscape is very nice. But there's something very pleasant about the drumlins. There's something, like I say, there's a welcome here, and there's a solidity about the people. And when you make friends in Cavan, they're usually your friends forever, So it's that kind of place. Great place to live and to work.
Well, I'm glad you like it so much. So the exhibition was opened before Christmas by the Minister, Heather Humphreys.
Indeed, yeah.
And it's showing in Johnston Central Library in Cavan up until the middle of January, am I right?
I think we're actually keeping it a little longer, because the schools, I think the Arts Officer and the Heritage Officer and the Geopark Officer, Grania, are all going to get together to invite some schools, because it's a very important exhibition in the sense of, like, there are so many diverse artists in it, and then the hanging of it, and that's part of their curriculum for, like, say, TY years, and things like that, So it'll be very good for secondary schools or national schools to actually come and see some of the work that's going on, and to see how people respond to different places in Cavan.
Brilliant. And you're going to read the poem that you wrote for the exhibition for us.
Okay.
So what's it called?
It's called Parsonage.
Okay, wonderful.
Parsonage, 1891. The cedar Lebanon has spread wildly, and offers only a modicum of shelter. The sparse but burgeoning branches, in an almost quizzical reach, rifle towards Mamma's circular rose beds, over the croquet lawn. This damn chair, these damn legs, this pain. I have not forgotten busy, bleak Glasgow, that guttural lilt, nor my king's own brothers, and though I wish I was with them still, I've been ousted, paid off, limped back to Ireland and Cavan. This house is thwarted, still enough for the sermons to resonate long after, enough for the meandering build to sprawl through the echoes. Cool Portland stone in the hall where the hound likes to sleep, and sometimes I swear I can still hear Mary calling from the stairs, that final planting of her feet, just an echo that's been around for years. Arthur gone as well, another foreign disease taking hold in an Irish climate. That Kilmore vault will claim us all. Solomon and I rattle quietly around here, a pall over the house and village now. Young wives of a habit of dying, and the children follow. Ours, sadly, is not the strongest constitution. But today the air is tart and sweet from the orchard. The scent of apples, fallen crabs, Kerry pippins, mackintosh. A late summer sun warms the grounds, elongates the shadow of my books over the edge of the table.